I've had some CEOs recently share with me that they are exhausted thinking back over the past couple of years. I know there are account holders that feel this way right now. And, when we go back and we think about where we've come from since early 2020, going through that whole COVID experience to where we're at right now, we have this fluctuation of just ever changing interest rate, market volatility. It's affecting how people spend. It's affecting how people save, consumer behaviors and habits. I want to get your take on this. Why should financial brand leaders be thinking about the emotional aspects of how people make financial decisions in uncertain times?
It's a great question. And absolutely, it's turbulent. I was in Jackson Hole with about 10 bank CEOs, and it was an opportunity for them to share their questions, concerns, problems with each other in a really safe environment. And I will tell you, exhaustion was a topic of conversation, not just for them, but for their teams and actually for their customers also. One of the things they talked a lot about was how to build morale and create energy and a team that is really staying positive, staying focused on growth, when they're often remote. Even if it's just a couple days a week working independently, it's hard to build teams and communicate the way we used to. And so that was an interesting conversation around how does a leader create powerful culture, and really demonstrate what it looks like to be a team that is taking risk and is focusing on growth when you're not always together, and in some places you're never even together, working almost 100% remotely. So that was an interesting take. They also talked about just all of the different scenarios that they have to run around what's going on with interest rates and what does that mean for their business, and where should they be investing in order to create some ballast so they're not just constantly going up and down with every word that Jerome Powell says,
Right.
but that they have a little more ballast in their income statement. And what are some ways to invest and to reduce that volatility? And that's a hard thing to do because you're not sure where rates are going to go from month to month or quarter to quarter.
I want to come back to the point you were previously making around this idea of morale, particularly in turbulent and chaotic times when people are in still remote situations or they're only coming in a couple of days a week. What are the opportunities here? Because I've been thinking a lot about this and have developed what I call the Future Growth Index, because I truly believe the perspective that we have about the future right now in the present moment will directly influence the decisions that we make, the actions that we take going forward to create that future. And so this idea of morale, mindset, help, hope, positivity is so key, starting first and foremost internally before we then can take that message externally to account holders. What are some practical ways that we can apply this thinking here?
I'm a big believer in purpose-driven organizations who are really clear on what it is they're doing for the good of society, and using that purpose to align organizations and inspire organizations to be doing more than just driving net income and earnings per share. And I think leaders who can be very clear and articulate about why the organization exists and then how they're going to execute on delivering on that purpose, I think is a real key to keeping people inspired and focused. And I love, even the way you talk about help and hope. That's a purpose. And I think organizations, banks that focus on the role they play in people's financial lives and, lighting the way to financial well-being, reducing financial stress, helping customers overcome these, concerns of turbulent times. If a leader can keep their organization focused on that, I think it pays off. And you can do that remotely. And then helping people connect the work that they do at a micro level to that purpose statement. So how is it I, as an employee, am making a difference in our customers' lives? and in our organization's purpose. I think that helps keep individual employees understanding kind of the role that they play, and that it matters. I mean, it
Yes.
adds up to something important.
And this is where I look at a formulaic approach to growth in parentheses, EX plus HX. So a positive employee experience leads to a positive human experience, can then be multiplied by the DX, the digital experience. And because what we're talking about is the heart of growth, it is about putting people at the center of our thinking and of our doing. What can financial brands do once we have that internal area of psychological safety, if you will, established? What can we do then externally to support account holders? We'll call it through empathetic offerings that are tailored around them, tailored around their unique situation, tailored around maybe some of the pains that they're feeling in the present moment because of some of the turbulence that they're experiencing right now. What are the opportunities externally thinking, if you will?
Well, first of all, I think it's important to think about the customer, and as basic as that is, I'll tell you, when we were in Jackson Hole, so much of the conversation was around financial modeling, around interest rate sensitivity and funding levels and understanding your ratios and different scenarios for your ratios. And honestly, we had to take a time out and say, let's back away from the balance sheet and let's actually start thinking about who are the customers on the other end of those numbers and which customers have what needs. How can we serve those needs, especially if they're not being served by others, and create opportunities to deliver value that hopefully customers are willing to pay for. And sometimes it just, we can easily get sucked into our financials and forget about the customer. And when we did lift up and we started sharing kind of across the room, who are the segments that we're serving? What are the opportunities that if we really thought empathetically about their unmet needs, what new opportunities would that create for us? And how can we extend what we currently offer, which might be like what everyone else offers, and start actually stepping into new products, services, approaches to help those customers? And we started sharing some ideas. For example, there was one organization that's a Native American bank, and they are using some of their funding to invest in tax credit investments, one of which is an opioid clinic on one of the reservations. And they realized, gosh, not a lot of banks can talk about the difference that their funding is going to for a particular community and for such a crisis. And they started talking about that and realized that it was really resonating with foundations and nonprofits who often think about how they spend their money, but didn't think about the power that their deposits can have in an institution that's using those deposits to fund really purposeful work. And so by telling their story and leaning into it a little bit more and finding new ways to invest in their communities, they actually became very appealing to foundations and nonprofits who have very large deposit balances. And it became a funding mechanism for them that they otherwise really hadn't thought about. And there were, several examples like that. Another one that banks churches and realized that churches are really struggling because a lot of their parish isn't coming back to church, and therefore they're not tithing. And they realized, gosh, maybe we can create a digital way for members of the church to tithe on a regular basis in an automated way. And even though they're not physically in the church, perhaps they can continue to stay connected to the mission of the church digitally. So they created a payment app to collect tithing for the churches. They're selling it now to multiple churches. Of course, the churches are happy bringing their business to the bank, and they now have a fee income generating payment business that is the ballast to their interest rate sensitivity that they were looking for. And it just took pausing for a minute, to your point, and saying, who are our customers? What are their needs that we're not really meeting? what is unique about our purpose or the people we serve, and how can we build product to meet those needs and help our balance sheet?